very warm welcome to this episode of Digital Dialogues powered by CXO Digital Buds. The regulatory technology industry, as we know well as RegTech industry, represents an evolving market that focuses on utilizing technology to enhance regulatory processes within the organization, enabling them with compliance management, reporting, risk management, identity management, and a lot more to streamline the intersection between technology, regulation, and finance. To further understand the nuances of this industry, today we have Mr. Mahesh Krishnamoorthy, who is the Managing Director of Core Integra. A warm welcome, Mr. Mahesh.
Pratik, thanks for having me here, and it's indeed my pleasure to be part of this discussion and happy to address any kind of questions and queries you have.
Great. So, starting with our first question, Mr. Mahesh, how do you see the evolution of regulatory landscape in India? And according to you, what are the key drivers behind these changes?
Okay, Pratik, that's an interesting question. So, typically if you see, the regulatory landscape has always been strong in India since inception. So even if you look at our post-independence kind of era, our leaders, our bureaucrats have always been pretty much focused on continuing the legacy of having robust regulatory networks and systems. And that's why you will see that, unlike most of the countries and rest of the world, we haven't had uh, very extended periods of recession, extended periods of, inflation, or, suddenly some kind of industries overshadowing monopolistic practices. So that has always been kind of a very well-governed, well-oiled mechanism. Now, of course, we were all taken in for some surprises when liberalization came in early 90s, which is when we thought that, there is an advent of technology. Computers are picking up pace over what the humans used to do at a point of time. There's a lot more transparency, a lot more visibility coming across in multiple areas. And liberalization suddenly got an exodus of multiple global players coming into India and tapping the Indian market for business. Which is where the regulators suddenly came up with the challenge that, we have to look at everything in a newer perspective. Obviously, the financial compliance space got the priority attention, coupled off with some scams that happened during that time, which you and I are aware of. So that is why the financial compliances got a little bit more of attention, and that was important from the economy's perspective. Interestingly, if you see when the newer banks, the new gen banks that we call today, came in 93, 94, we didn't have anyone in the country who had actually set up a bank before that. Because for 50 years before that, no banks were made in India. So you can understand the importance of having that knowledge, recreating that knowledge. And today also, if you see most of the taglines behind our acts, it is 1857, 1889, 1923, 1912, 1961. So, you have all these kind of dates which come into all these kind of acts. So, the entire revisit, the entire relook had to happen from mid-90s onwards. The first attention came to the financial compliances, followed by financial compliances, then it went into the capital market compliances. After capital market compliances, it went into insurance space, the financing space, NBFC space. And I think now in the last 5-6 years, even the labor law compliance space is being looked at. So I think it's a very transformational kind of phase that we are sitting in. We have reached certain part of the journey, but I still believe there's a long way to go in this.
Great. And Mahesh, I understand there are a lot many, considering India, if we look as a country, it's pretty diverse, the kind of challenges which it comes up with, the kind of industry and the heterogeneous mix. So what are the unique regulatory challenges that you foresee specifically for the Indian region, and what kind of tailoring is what is required for it?
Okay. Now that's again an interesting question. So in India, historically, we have always been fans of paper when it comes to compliances. So, you always have multiple forms, green color forms, orange color forms, blue color forms, off-white color
True.
forms, then again in duplicate, triplicate, quadruplicate. I think we would be the largest consumers of those carbon papers at a point of time, which, used to copy things. Then again, you
True.
have box files, paper files. So the moment you talk about compliances, the image that comes to your mind is huge record room which has got a lot of box files, paper files, which has a lot of paper. Unfortunately, to a large extent, it is true even today. We have not completely migrated to digital transformation. We have made a lot
True.
of progress. A lot of things the government has taken step towards it, but we still have a lot of paper around. The second challenge that we have in the compliance space is, the same information we have to submit multiple times. So if I submit an information under Act A, I have to submit the same information under Act B, because Act A is governed by some other unit, Act B is governed by some other unit. Now, if I have to give you a simple example of something which is very basic, you have you have the apprentice program. We have National Apprentice Act 1961. We have NAPS program. We have NATS program. Now, eventually, everything is the same. Rule regulation is the same. There is synergy between both these programs. There is the same set of percentage of people that we need to take. But again, there are two different authorities which govern it, because it comes under two ministries. So somewhere that simplification and consolidation is something which is very, very important. And these are the two primary problems that you face in any compliance today, not restricted to any kind of compliance. You look at any compliances, this is the problem today in India.
You pointed it very well, Mahesh, that the kind of duplicity that requires just because of the multiple divisions where the information needs to be submitted and a lot of paperwork piles up. However, there are a lot of technologies that are being adopted. There are emerging technologies like AI, there's blockchain, and much more. How are these technologies being adopted or say within the RegTech sector, and what is the kind of potential that they hold in transforming the entire process related to say compliance or even regulatory processes?
Look, let me respond to this in two parts. So the first part is, interestingly, we need to know how this industry functions. And you used a very nice and appropriate term called RegTech. Okay, so the RegTech piece I will address as second part of the response. Now, the first part of the response, if you see, let's take a situation of pre-2000, which is just 20 years back. Pre-2000s, if you see, a large part of our entire compliance industry used to either be captive, that is, employees were hired by organizations and they used to fulfill these various compliances. And then there were a lot of small and medium level players who used to typically help in terms of licensing with the authorities, helping you resolve that shade of gray which is always there in a legal or compliance parlance, and used to be kind of guides and licensing agents for the organizations, which were typically companies which used to operate at district level or maximum state level. So they were never exposed to what happens across multiple states and those kind of things. If you look at the post-2000 era, you will see that there are a lot of national level players and international level players, global players who have come in. So including our company. So we are in existence in this business for 15 years. Now we are probably one of the largest national level players when it comes into labor law compliances. Now, why this national level became important is because the moment we liberalized our economy and globalized our economy in mid-90s, most of the international companies started coming in. Indian companies started expanding. Today, on an average, if you see any startup that starts today, within a year or two, they have offices in at least about 7 or 8 cities, which is in 7 or 8 different states. Now, there are different laws, different regulations, different licenses, different registrations applicable to them. Hence, the entire opportunity in this space started coming up. Now, even today, if you see, the percentage of business being done captive and with the small-time players is comparatively large if you look at some segments like labor law compliances, but comparatively small when you look at financial compliances or taxation compliances. Because financial taxation compliances, you still have many of those big fours and you have a lot of Indian firms which have come in this space. But the labor law compliance, if you see, it is still governed and ruled largely by the small-time players. So we need to understand how this ecosystem functions. Okay. Now, to answer the second part, when this ecosystem functions in this kind of a manner, the advent of technology becomes very slow, because the ecosystem which is servicing you is not an ecosystem which has a lot of money to do technological innovations, which is where these national players have an edge, because they have the capacity, because they have a larger client base, they have larger volume of work, hence they are able to go and invest a quantum of money into developing technologies. Now, coming to the word that you used as RegTech. Now, RegTech is a very broad word. It is regulatory technology or regulatory compliances technology. Now, what happens is, we found that in the market, people talk about compliance management solutions, they talk about RegTech solutions, but they are referring to what typically is sold as a checklist. So you get a checklist. The checklist is a derivative of someone configuring the acts and laws as applicable to your organization, and then someone within your organization has to play the maker role, checker role, and then update evidences. But the question that comes is, where are you doing those compliances? So today, if you are onboarding a new employee in your company, you have an HRMS software. If you're processing payroll every month, the salaries every month, you have a salary processing software. If you're passing an accounting entry, you have an accounting ERP or an accounting software. But the question comes, where do you process your compliance transactions? And today, while it's a misnomer by telling RegTech and compliance management solutions, what is available in the market is largely your checklists, which says that these are acts and laws applicable to you. Please go and do something outside the system, and then you keep updating here as an evidences. This is what needs to change. What needs to change is, just like you have a comprehensive HR platform where right from onboarding an employee to his transfers, his or her transfers, his exit formalities, his performance appraisal, his or her salary processing, all that happens in a unified platform. For regulatory compliances also, you need a unified platform, which basically takes care of processing of information, processing of data, having a repository where you can quickly, like a Google check and answer. If you put keywords, what are the various laws, acts, references, inferences in simple languages, having the extracts of the actual laws and acts, circulars, notification, and then finally, generating multiple reports saying that you are compliant or non-compliant. Now, this is a journey which is currently evolving. So, because India is exposed to software and compliance probably only in the last 5 years. So, right now we are in phase 1 where comprehensive softwares are being built and evolved. The phase 2 comes to what you're talking about, AI and blockchain and all of that. Now, we have moved to an RPA, robotic process automation, because we have a 10-year-old software. We have multiple information in the software. We have multiple clients in the software. We have over 750 enterprises, over 10,000 users in the software. And because we have that, today we are capable of using robotic process automation for doing the quantitative, repetitive tasks where we don't want the human being to do it. The next stage of evolution, which will come probably 2 years down the line, is in building AI into it. The reason why we need to build AI is, today there are logical decisions which human beings are making. Those logical decisions should also go into the system, and the employee should be left only for intelligent activities, analytical activities, and activities where they need to engage with our clients. That means the quality of the human resource job becomes of a very, very high skill. Now, this journey, if you ask me, has taken us, if I look at the mature stage 2-3 years down the line, it's a 12 to 15 year journey. Now, we were one of the earliest players in this segment, hence it took us 12 to 15. But even if some new player enters in the market today and wants to reach what we reach in 12 to 15 years, it will take at least about 6-7 years. So time has come down by half because of players like us being available in the market. But still, to have a completely evolved RegTech, I think it will be another 5-6 years before India really sees an evolved RegTech platform like they see in finance and accounts or like they see in HR. This industry is still evolving, and that's why it's an exciting place to be in.
Great. And I'm sure there are various things which are happening both in terms of the industry dynamics, I would say, along with the kind of compliances that are evolving, that are giving a lot of boon to the overall RegTech industry. And you mentioned labor law, and along with that, the finance, the fintech part also, because a lot many players were entering India. Now, if I focus specifically on the financial aspect, a lot is happening in the financial industry with fintechs entering, and a lot is even evolving in terms of fintech with the news which is coming nowadays in the market around the compliances and the hard rules that RBIs are very stringent to apply upon. Considering these developments in the fintech industry, how do you think it is giving a further boon to RegTech industry? And what other synergies do you think these two sectors can bring to the table?
So, 2 points that we established in the conversation till now. First is the entire regulatory compliances landscape in India is evolving, and it's evolving rapidly. RegTech industry is definitely an industry which is, a kind of a sunshine industry now. And the next 10-15 years is a huge evolution, transformation, and rapid growth phase for this industry. And that is why there are a lot of new players who are coming into the industry. I wouldn't want to take the names in this forum, but even if you Google, you'll understand that there are a lot of players who are not in this space but want to venture into this space because it's become really attractive. So this is the same way what India was in late 90s, early 2000 when it came to the financial compliances and the capital market compliances, because India was booming at that time and a lot of players got into the space because they were voids. So I have spent 15 years of my life in all segments of banking, financial services sector. And I remember that when I was in the capital markets industry, 2008, when the first, meltdown happened, uh, we didn't have robust risk management systems. But 2011, we had at least a choice of 10 players in the market who had pretty robust risk management systems. So the beauty of India is, while we evolve, there are multiple industries coming and multiple people pick up the opportunity and build something. And the advantage we have on the tech mindset and the tech speed of tech implementation is phenomenal. So if you look at the startup ecosystem, uh, what we were 10 years back, what we are today, and what we'll be 10 years later is going to zap all of us. So two things which play in India's favor. One is today we have a 140 odd crore population. About 80 crores happens to be in the working age. If you look in another 6 or 7 years, which is 2030, you will find that from a 150 crore population, about 110 would be in working age population, which is consumption for us. Second is, you don't have 110 crore jobs in India, which means that we will create a lot of employers, entrepreneurs, startups. So obviously the government will give an ecosystem which is going to facilitate that. Now, when this gets facilitated, any startup or any enterprise which is promoting startups within itself, because you see today most of the large enterprises are also diversifying. They are picking up leaders which is today called entrepreneurs in residence, and they are trying to build new ventures with them. Now, these people come up with brilliant ideas, they come up with brilliant marketing thoughts, they come up with brilliant products and services, but what they lack is what compliance applies to me and what happens if I don't adhere to it. Now, today, if I want to venture into, let's say, a Swiggy, Zomato kind of an industry, which is largely prevalent on the last mile, what are the rules, regulations applicable to me to take care of the person who's on the last mile? Second is, uh, for MSMEs, there is a rule today that I have to settle the payments within 45 days. If I'm not aware of it, I delay it, I get penalized on that. There are multiple licenses that I need. Even if I'm opening a small cloud kitchen, for a cloud kitchen, I need to have a lot of licenses, registrations in place. Now, people generally fear it and they say that, there are 34 different compliances I need to fulfill. It's going to be very difficult. Absolutely not. It's very easy. Very easy. You have to just make certain submissions. Many of them have become online today, thanks to the digital transformation happening across the industry. So there is a need for a knowledge. Compliance and legal is always going to have a shade of gray. So someone who needs to advise you on it and someone who needs to execute it. Because today, earlier it was like companies used to outsource to India. Today, if you see, Indian companies are outsourcing within India. Because for the Indian companies, the attitude is, I will do what I'm supposed to do. Whereas these kind of activities which can be outsourced, I'm happy giving it away to people because the experts can do it at a certain fixed cost that I incur every month or every year. I don't want to hire people or I don't want to break my head on that. So whether it's an accounting activity, whether it's a compliance activity, whether it's HR activity, whether it's payroll outsourcing activity, whether it's licensing activity, whether it is contractual staffing activity, everything they outsource today. And today, Indian outsourcing itself is a huge space. Now, put all these things together in what we spoke in the last 4-5 minutes, you will see that this industry is evolving at a very, very rapid scale. The need for a knowledge expert is always going to be there. Hence, this industry is attractive. So, if you ask my own personal journey, I was a BFSI veteran. From there, I went into KPO and ITES as my first entrepreneurial venture. I am a chartered accountant. I have no connection with HR and compliance per se. But the reason why I got into this space in 2021 by investing in Core Integra is very clearly that for the next 10 years, this is going to be the booming, one of the booming industries in India. And the best place to be in if you are, looking at transforming this place both process-wise and technology-wise.
Okay. Great, Mr. Mahesh. And I would say you have covered a lot of points, starting with the kind of Indian landscape is, what is, how they are taking care of all these aspects, the regulatory aspects. But as you mentioned that, many a times they are maybe unaware of the kind of implementation, the regulatory implementations that they need. So how open and aware are of this concept of that, this needs attention, and if they can't take care, let's outsource it. Although you mentioned that, within India, the outsourcing space is increasing for the regulatory processes. But as per your observation, all these startups, the SMEs, how much are they aware that, this exists, and outsourcing this process is definitely beneficial for them?
So, Pratik, this is where technology plays a very, very critical role. And technology has two parts to it. One part is the government-driven technology, where government itself is doing a lot of things on their various compliance portals. So you have the Shram Suvidha, you have the Sugam portals, you see the transformation of our provident fund, and the ESIC portal is also there today. You look at income tax. So, for example, in income tax, you update your Form 16. If there is an error, within 5 minutes, you get a message. So that means the algorithms are that strong. Your refund comes to you within 2 or 3 weeks. In fact, for my mother, I filed the return in the evening. Within 48 hours, she got the refund in her account. So, this kind of efficiencies are coming because of technology, which is the government-driven technology, which government is evolving day by day. Second is the private players, the industry. So, industry is also piggybacking on what the government is building, because ultimately there has to be a bridge between the companies, corporates, SMEs, startups, and what the government has built on its portal. So a lot of private players are entering this space where they are building this kind of bridge, and which is standard uniform bridges. So it moves from us to the government. So simple GST returns that we file. There are many software which does the complete bank reconciliation, GST reconciliation, and it just pushes it conveniently at a click of a button to the GST portal. So the industry and government connect on the technology side is growing very rapidly, and today itself it is pretty impressive. So I find it hard to or difficult to imagine what it will be like probably 10 years down the line. It would be seriously something like your the Harry Potter and Hogwarts and all magical things happening using technology. So if you decide to create a new startup next time, just Google the industry you are sitting in and what kind of compliances are available for you. You will get all information at a fingertip. There are many links that you can subscribe to. There is many information that players like us and the government gives across as promotional triggers. So all the information is available on internet today, and anyone who wants to start anything will get all the information. Now the second step comes, you've got the information and you've got the awareness. But what to do, you will of course need a professional help, because it's not your subject matter. So that's why you will need to take, like, if you have to file a returns, we go to a chartered accountant, right? So it's the same way. If you need help, you will need to go to a compliance professional who will help you on that. But is information available? Technology beautifully provides any information that you want. So if you just simply go to Google, maybe after this discussion, and you type, want to open a new office in Kanpur, what compliances apply to me? You will be zapped by what Google gives you as an output. Because all government links, government portal, private players links, subscription tools, everything is available.
Okay. And with all these aspects combined together, the kind of evolving markets that are coming up, be it your SMEs, your startups, the kind of initiatives that government is taking, the technology part, and even this knowledge, all together driven by technology. What are the trends that you intend to predict, say, for next 5 years, that will be shaping this regulatory technology industry in India, and how should companies prepare for it?
We are sitting actually on this entire industry sitting on a cusp of change. So if I look at one of the points which you mentioned about fintechs, now fintech is today NBFCs and fintech employs larger number of people than banks in India. So, and earlier it was, it would be a little inappropriate, but the right word that comes to my mind was, it was a little loosely governed. But now the government has understood that this is an industry which is growing very fast. Hence, on the fintech and on the NBFCs, they're bringing about a lot of regulations, which sometimes may be seen as a constraint, but largely, if you see on a long-term basis, it helps the industry become more structured, robust, safe, and grows, which increases the confidence of the public as well as the confidence of the government and the authorities. To give a simple example, today if you given a choice of 8% interest in a State Bank of India versus 9.5% interest in an NBFC, the human mindset is still to go that SBI is a bank which is safe, NBFC may not be safe. But with these regulations that government is getting in place, people will have the same amount of confidence and will be happy to take that extra 1.5% interest, knowing it is safe. So that is what these regulations move into. The second space is the new wage code, which is on the anvil of implementation, because it's already ready since 2019-20. Almost all the states have prepared their draft framework and rules. That is a phenomenal change in this space, because as I told you, most of the labor laws are today archaic. It's created 40 years, 50 years, 80 years, 100 years back. Whereas the new wage code 2020 simplifies those laws, consolidates those laws, makes the entire compliance process simple. That is a huge transformation coming into India after a very long time in this space. Now, when these kind of things are coming, obviously things are evolving. When things are evolving, you need technology to be adept. You need user interfaces to be simple. The third dimension that comes into it, while we spoke about domain, we spoke about government initiatives, the third dimension that comes is technology itself is changing so rapidly. So we had softwares which we used to build 10 years back in .NET. Then we moved to Java. Today, RPA has come, we are moving to Python. And tomorrow there are more futuristic technologies which is coming, which is, like how earlier buildings were made brick by brick. Today, buildings are made precast. So the pillars, everything comes precast and it is installed in the place. So today technology is also becoming box-like. So you pick up a box, you put it. You take a second box, you put it. Then you blend both these boxes, you get the output. So technology is changing so rapidly. This is a third dimension which is important, because you can't really invest huge amounts beyond 3 years, because in 3 years the technology changes. So I joined Corintegra in 2021. The technology we used to use till 21 was different. Today, till 24, we changed the technology. Now, post 24, already my CIO has come up with a list saying that we need to upgrade to all these kind of things. So, that budget is just not stopping. And then the challenge comes, how do you get a ROI out of this investment? Which is going to be a challenge for the RegTech players. Because in RegTech, compliances are changing, domain is changing, government requirements are changing, user requirements are evolving because it's a new industry, and technology is also changing. Now, the success of a RegTech player depends on how that player is able to balance the cost, the return on the investment, and how rapidly they are able to scale their customer base and make profits out of it. And that is going to be the biggest balance that any RegTech player needs to do. And just to add one more dimension, which is not highly relevant today, but will become relevant very soon, is ultimately RegTech is a technology interface, but 70% of it is the knowledge at the back end. And the knowledge talent pool is limited. So obviously the demand is high. So obviously the salary costs are increasing.
I would say that was a very interesting point that you mentioned at the end, Mr. Mahesh, because India in itself is a dynamic country, and the kind of evolution it is facing, it is pretty fast, as you mentioned, in terms of the startups, the technology, the information. Organization need to be on their toes just to ensure that they are compliant and all the regulations and are at its place. And even we are observing there are a lot of RegTech organizations are coming which are more updated, and this updation is regularly required even for the supply side as much as for the demand side. So enterprises need to be there on your toes, and as I said, the good message out of this is also that it will definitely boost the jobs also, because the kind of skilled labor which is required, that will another boon to the India as a country. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Mahesh, and I hope the audience got a lot of information from this. In case if you require any more information, do contact us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pratik.